I was fortunate to be hired here at OERDC in '59, and I put my first plots in 1960. And Dave Van Dorn and I worked together, and we had to make a system that would work without the tillage. And of course, crops need several things. They need water, they need nutrients, they need to be planted at the proper time. And so if we're doing without the tillage, these crops still need these inputs. And so it was a trial and error thing that we started out. And one of the first things that happened was that Dave had a corn plot here with very little cover on it. And I had a corn plot here that I had put in to kill some alfalfa grass sod and planted corn into that. And I got a yield increase, and he got a big yield decrease. And so we're looking at this thing and we're scratching our heads and wondering what the heck is going on here. And we figured out that the amount of cover on the soil surface for that crop was very important. And so we looked at this over several years, and we found that about 60% cover we would get equal yields for the no-till and where we had plowed and cultivated. And so as the cover increased, then we got better yields with the no-till. And when you're doing something new like this, it takes a while to sort out all of the details of what you need to do and how to do it. And having said this, we also had some plots over in Whiteville on a different soil, and on that soil over there, the cover didn't make very much difference for the yield. We didn't get the yield response to cover. And this cover on this soil here affected the amount of water that the crop got, which is very important. The more cover, the more water, the less runoff, and the greater the yield. So these things don't come together in one season. They have to be looked at and figured out what all is going on. And we started the long-term plots, which we'll go see later today, in 1962. I would show someone what I was doing, and they would say, yeah, you might get by 3 or 5 years, but sooner or later you're going to have to till this ground because, and you pick the reason. And so I started these, Dave and I started these plots, and they've been going for 55 years, and we hadn't had to till the plots for 55 years, and they may last a while longer before we have to till those plots. Would you agree with that? Yeah. Something that I would like to comment about also is that, well, maybe I'll quote my late wife. I took her out to show her what I was doing, and she'd grown up on a farm in Mississippi where her father grew cotton and cultivated very clean rows, and she looked at all those dead weeds and old corn stalks and corn plants about this tall growing up in that plot, and I quote, "Glover, this looks terrible. they're going to fire you. But something that I would like to say also is that when we do work like this, we look at maybe 1 year or 2 years. That's what we focus on. But with these plots that we'll be looking at today, I would like to suggest that we consider the long-term effects of some of these practices that we're doing. And in this study we're going to see, we had tilled and no-till, and the till plots have lost some soil. 6 inches was replaced in the till plots after this period of time. And if we look at the long term, what we do in a given year may not degrade the soil, but as time goes on, it can be degraded. And with the no-till, we can keep the soil in place and keep our productivity up. And I've seen 2 studies or opinion pieces. One of them is that by 2050 that we're going to have a problem with enough food for people in the world. And another one that's more recent said that in the next 10 years that we're going to have a problem with the number of calories that we have to feed our total population. And so for the long term, not if but when we can get this problem with enough calories for everybody to eat, we're going to have an increase in crop prices because there won't be a lot of carryover crops. We will have an interest in getting some land that is now not used, it's on hillsides, and getting it into production so that we can have more crops grown in the area. And eastern and southern Ohio has quite a bit of this type of land that can be converted, and if it is, and we're going to keep it long term, then it should be converted with no-till so that we're not degrading our soil and having problems with it, but we'll have an increase in prices and make some of these areas that I'm talking about will be useful for growing crops that will be profitable.
Thank you very much. Dave, if we could go on to you. Bill, we could go to you. I'm looking at Dave here back there. Your relationship here, as you guys met, how did that get started? And how did that affect your work as far as from the regulatory side? I know you have some prepared remarks, but if you could, maybe the relationship between you two and how that has influenced your work in RCS down the road.
Well, that's the first thing I wrote about. Well, thank you. Thank Randall that keeps continuing to let me participate in these programs. The problem is it gives you this big assignment of all these things to talk about. So I thought I better write it down because I sort of tend to forget things a little bit. But first, it's a great honor to participate on this panel with Dr. Tripp. He's a man that's made a great difference in my life. And he's made a difference in lives all over this world. We think about what we really started here in Ohio and how it spread over the world. You know, some people call me the grandfather of no-till, and I obviously am old enough to be the grandfather of no-till. But there's many of us on this stage that were there also. We were laughing at each other a few minutes ago. We sat down in order of age. Maybe there's a pecking order or something. I don't know. Anyway, it's teachers and it's researchers and it's organizations like we have here at Wooster that's made it possible for really a revolution in the way we farm and the way we treat the soil all over this world. I met Glover in 1962. Here I was on a tour, much like we're going to take today. I was with a group of hybrid seed producers as their guest, and we stopped at Triplett's position out there, and he gave his presentation and was trying to get them off the wagon to look at the corn, but they thought he was crazy, of course, and they were very uninterested. I quipped here that as far as the hybrid producers, maybe they haven't changed in that whole 50 years. I got off the wagon and I stayed with Triplett, and we traded ideas, and we've been trading ideas and friends ever since. Thank you, Glover. Again, he was talked about it, but he once urged me to come over into the rolling country of Ohio and buy land where it was cheaper, because long term, with no-till, that land will produce, at least it'll make as much money as some of our level land that we're farming. I also chuckled when you give the experience of your wife. My neighbor, John Stevenson, would try to do the things that I was doing until his wife Linda said, "John, if you continue trying things like Bill does, I'm not going to sign your notes at the bank." Before Triplett, that I was still trying to find out a way to not to plow. My neighbors always said I never did learn how to plow, and that was maybe one of the blessings. We tried plow plant with a two-row planter behind a 5-bottom plow. We tried disc plant with a 4-row planter behind a disc. And then we developed, thanks to a researcher here at OSU, Dr. Gordon Ryder, we put a cultivator on the front of the tractor and a 6-row planter on the back of the tractor, and we used Alice Chalmers' rotary hose. And that worked pretty well. And really, that's the concept is now called stale seed bed. We moved on because we wanted to get out of the plow, tried a Western corn lister. That didn't work. But then we started on our own. We developed a till planter that we had started out with 6 rows, with shovels, and used a lot of power. But really, that worked, and we were doing quite well. We were finally had something that we would at least hold in yield or increase in yield. That would be what you would call a strip till today. Then Alice Chalmers gave us the no-till culver. I like to call that God's gift to conservation, because that opened up the whole world for us. We immediately went to 12 rows, then we went to 24 rows, after John Kinzenbaum invented the big 60-foot toolbar, and really the rest is history. I'd like to say John Kinzenbaum, if you want to blame somebody for the big time wide agriculture that we have today, it was John that helped start all this, and look where it's going. Those early years, the machine industry was very hostile, and we had to do everything on our own, and they're still Will there still try if you watch, if you don't watch them, getting us back to more horsepower and more tractors? You know, when we started, we were only trying to save labor, fuel, and management and cut costs. We had no idea the soil erosion, the soil health, and all the benefits of continuous no-till. Soil Conservation Service and the public and public policy really discovered no-till with the '85 Farm Bill. And we immediately figured that the best and the fastest way to meet those rules and those standards was no-till. That's really what sent me to Washington when they wanted an old farmer to really demonstrate what could be done. We were successful to a point. That no-till curve really went up, and that erosion curve went down. No-till spread around the world, with land coming into production that could not be farmed in the old methods. Glover really mentioned that. That's really the benefit. The downside is that we brought a lot of land over the world into production, and now there are competitors. Sad to say that we don't lead in the world so far as no-till. In fact, we're in about 5th place, with Brazil, Argentina, Australia, and Canada doing a much better job than we're doing. Now, Randall wanted me to talk more about policy, and mainly how do we increase no-till, increase cover crops, really increase soil health, erosion control, water quality, etc., all the things that the public is demanding. Well, I'd like to throw out 3 options, and I'll probably, I'm glad my sons are not here to hear me say this, because 2 of those the farmers will not like. First, of course, is regulation, laws that might fine or maybe even jail the bad actors. That can be done with EPA. We've tried to reward us farmers for good practices, but with some success, not enough success. Long term, I feel the public will not tolerate the erosion and the bad water that we have today. If we want to really witness what's happening, just drive across that beautiful prairie of Iowa after a big rain and see the problems. Number 2, what if corn drops to $2, wheat to $3.50, and beans to $5? Will this wake up farmers to the financial benefits of no-till? Yeah, that would bring no-till, because I'll never forget speaking before a group on a farm in Australia, a group of Aussie farmers. And one farmer sort of stepped up and said, yeah, we must no-till here in Australia in order to survive. You Yankees get government payments, and you don't need to no-till. That was sort of a big ouch, but third, and I hope it's the solution, that's education, promotion. Maybe need incentives, but incentives are going to be hard to get in the climate that we have in Washington at the present time. One of the real problems we have with no-till or with conservation on the land in general is that long term it benefits the owner of the land. In short term, it costs money to the operator of the land. We have to figure out how to get to those owners. Of course, many cases it's really working where the farmer and the operator are the same organization. But we've got to get and we've got to sell the benefits of long-term soil improvement. Our university system or our researchers have to figure out how to really put a price on what better conservation, better organic matter, what's it really worth, we have to sell those owners. We must adopt this third option if we're going to really have the freedom and the business that we have had and dream about. And it's all about responsibility. I'm going to close with a motto that I sort of developed over time, and I try to live by. I don't get it done sometimes. Sometimes I can't sell my own sons on what really should be done. But I think it's the responsibility, yes, the duty, to use the best technology available to produce food, fiber, and fuel while protecting, conserving, and yes, improving our land, water, and the environment we have been blessed with, that we inherited. With that, I thank you, and I look forward to the rest of the questions.
Bill, I've got a quick question for you. A lot of funding for awareness, education, other areas comes from the Farm Bill. Do you think we'll have one by September 30th? A new one?
Well, we were on a program here a while back, and Mosley was with us. Mosley was the assistant and then deputy secretary, and he just laughed. He said, well, maybe January, December 31st.
Thank you very much. Let's give him a big round of applause. Don Myers, Ohio State Extension, retired. Let's talk about your no-till story. What you'd like to add to the conversation?
Good morning, folks. It's my pleasure to be with you and have this opportunity. There was a little leaflet that I think was laying at the registration desk that I had written really for the purpose that due to health reasons I might not be able to be here today. And it was primarily why those words were put that way, and Randall went ahead and reproduced them. And so that I think you can review sometime at your leisure if you care to. But in April of 1966, as that indicates, I had just returned from graduate school at Michigan State, been assigned as an extension agronomy specialist for primarily the eastern third of the state, all of it encompassing the eastern portion of the unglaciated and the outwash area and the hilly area of Ohio. And at that time, alfalfa weevil was a problem, and we were holding alfalfa weevil control meetings. And a Geigy chemical rep said to me, maybe sometime you want to think about a different way here on this rolling land of something that you could do with this rotation we have of corn, oats, wheat, and hay, as to how we would get going back from the sod crop and from the hay crop back into corn with some reduced tillage. And I understand that there's a person at Worcester that's working on that. So I came to Worcester in April of '66, hunted up an individual I had not met before, Dr. G.B. Triplett. Went to his office, and so we talked about this, and he said, we need to get started on this right away. And we're going to do it right now. I thought, well, we'll talk about it for a year, and maybe next spring, maybe we'll get around to doing this. He says, no, we're going to do this within 10 days. You get some farms lined up, and I'll meet you, and we're going to go about it. And so I contacted some county agents and some farmers that I knew. We lined up some farms, and we were out on them in that particular year of '66, going into sod fields and putting in no-till corn. I met him, and he had a stick body truck with a roll back on it in terms of loading and unloading, a little Ford tractor and a little makeshift two-row corn planter, which had a cutting coulter in front, a shoe type of opener, which historically was used in tilled fields, and a press field behind. And that's what we went into to start with. It was an interesting thing. We were calling it no plow. And some of the fields that these farmers, really, we couldn't understand why they said, this is the field we want you to work with. Why did they do that? Actually, it was a field that never been plowed. It was a field that was full of stones, and it was a new ground field full of roots. It was a wet field. It was a field on top of a mountain. I can tell you stories about that thing in terms of going with this guy Triplett. He said we were trying to go up up on top of this hill thing, and this little Ford tractor, because it was a 3-point hitch, and he would raise the corn flare in the back, and the front wheels would go up on the little tractor. And so he said, you get up on there, climb up on there, hold on to the radiator cap, and hold the front end down. Now, some of you in this room know that I'm not the most athletic person in the world, and as a result, I said, Trip, I don't know how to get up there. He said, well, figure it out. So I went around to the front, climbed up and put my feet somewhere by the front wheels, leaned up over the radiator, hung on to the radio cap, and that's how we went up to. I hope there's no pictures of that. I don't think OSHA would approve of that too well. But that was a kind of anyway, we did have fields which also were regular crop fields, and we learned from them. That was what we were attempting to do, is learn how to proceed with this thing. Year 2, as I say in the little leaflet, I came with a little bit of a different planter. We had a Kohler with ripples on it. We had disc openers for the planter and the press wheels, and we proceeded in that manner. And we started with that and worked with that up until '68, and then from there on it was with the Alice Chalmers people, and then from there on it was history in terms of our demonstrations around the countryside. We went all over, in the following years we went all over eastern Ohio, and really over the span of time, and I did not know that this was going to lead to what it did. But over the next 10 years, we spent hundreds of days and thousands of miles traveling this state and then speaking this state around the United States and part of it around the countryside, outside of this country. Well, enough of all of that. In 1967, coming back up through the countryside, he got to looking at these pasture fields. And he says, Don, why do they look unproductive? And I said, well, they're mismanaged. There's not any fertilizer line put on them, and it's overgrazing and some things of that kind. But there's unproductive species growing there. He says, well, let's change that. I said, well, it's difficult to do. You have to disc it a number of times, and it takes a period of time to kill the weedy vegetation that's there, with drying and dying to occur. In the meantime, erosion's taking place. He said, oh, we're going to do a no-till. I said, what? And he said, oh yeah, we can do that. We'll change the herbicides. I have a new product called Paraquat. And this is, I've not had a lot of experience with it, but it's a desiccant material, and I think that we can do, we have this grassland drill at Worcester, and we'll get that thing, and we'll give it a try. I said, when are we going to do that? And he says, next week. So, we're back on the road again with this contraption, and we're riding around the countryside, and that was the beginning in that part of the state on farms. And some of you are here today, and in terms of Woodham's at the end of the table, where we drove in one day at dusk. We left here at Worcester. He would pick the rig up at 6 in the morning. We would bring it back after dark at night. He would leave a note on for them at the they didn't call it the garage, they called it, I guess, the service building, and say, have this gas and ready to go in the morning by 6. We picked it up at 6 the next day, and that's the way that we went. We worked from dawn to dark and raced around the state. No cell phones, no way of telling anybody that we were coming. We would get behind, the farmers would think we weren't coming. It was difficult. Well, anyhow, we didn't have tools. We didn't make drills. That takes us to the whole drill sermon. which we can't go into. But there were no drills at all, and so, except this Western Grassland drill, which no longer was in production, that we were using. And so we had to work with short line companies. And we got, in the early 70s, we got something, a little thing called the Zip Seeder, came out of Electric Mills, Mississippi. Some of you called it Zip and Skip, and that's about what it was. But at any rate, it was better than, it was something. And some of you actually bought them and used them. And we moved from there across, the next one was the Ty. And the Jim Ty himself came here to Ohio. He called me on the phone and talked to me, and he said, "Look, I hear you're working with this no-till thing." I said, "What we're trying to do is to seed forages. Do you think you can do that?" He said, "I'm seeding cotton." And he said, "Have you ever seen a cotton seed?" And I said, "I'm sorry, sir, I don't think I have." He said, "Well, if you can plant cotton, I think I can plant your forages for you." He himself came up with we got started with the Thai people. It went from there to the Moore unit drill, across to the Great Plains, and to the Melrose, and to the other drills across the way. Now, one other little thing with that, about something that you said, Bill, about the companies. In order to try to get equipment, we thought what we would do, we needed to talk to the big manufacturers and see if it was possible for them to take note about the going into manufacturing of some of this equipment. We made an appointment, Tripp and I, with a major manufacturer, which I won't name. We needed to work our way up the line and get an appointment with them, with somebody who was a decision maker, rather than somebody out at the lobby who would merely say, yeah, you're nice looking guys. And so we wanted to get to somebody that would, and we did get that appointment. We put white shirts and ties on, would you remember, don't you think? Because we wanted to look professional and represent the university and the research center and the extension service appropriately. And we marched into this guy's office and we started to talk a little bit about this, and he says, wait. Let's go over this thing. This is no plow. You're not plowing. And we said, yeah, that's correct. He said, you know, the history of this company is built on the plow. We have 114 patents on the plow. Now, power requirement for our equipment is based on the plow, and the tillage equipment to buy a plow, or to use them for working the soil, calling a plow. Gentlemen, please leave. They escorted us, this is a God's true story. They escorted us out of the building, down the stairs, out of the building. Somebody held the door for us so the door wouldn't hit us in the backside as we left. And Tripp and I found ourselves standing on the street. And I won't repeat, he may not, I don't know if he remembers exactly what he said. I won't repeat what he said. Something about being thrown out of some places in Korea. And beyond that, he looked at me and said, what time tomorrow and what direction we going? And that was the way that this thing worked. Now, so I'm going to skip, I guess, across all of it. The rest of this is written on here, and you can see it. But a couple of things that I do want to point out, and Bill, I'll take some of your time because I'm going to talk about Chevron. In the early 70s, the Chevron people, we were working on a shoestring, Tripp and I. A shoestring. We didn't have any support. We didn't have any grant money. We didn't have anything. We were working. We were big in atrazine and 2,4-D. We were big in fertilizer and seed. And when it came to back to the early 70s, in 1973, Bill Haddad and Chevron joined us. And that's when we had some financial support. We had some more feet on the ground, and we had a bulldog on no-till, and that was of course, Bill Haddad. And from there, in terms of support for holding meetings and for events, it made it so much easier. And something else that we had very distinctly through those years that Tripp and I had to work with, beyond all of the demonstrations and all of the meetings that Chevron and Bill put on, was we had demonstration farms that Dr. Cotman insisted we have. We had farm and home development, rapid adjustment farms, let's see, Vertibro. There was a third one in there somewhere. Test demonstration farms. And typically there'd be 15 farms with a farm in each of the counties. There were 5-year programs. He wanted the best and new research to take place on those, and that meant we had to put the crops out essentially and work with getting equipment to those farms, and it meant no-till corn equipment and no-till the drill equipment. And again, Chevron and everyone helped us do that. It was a major type of a thing. Somebody said to us, and Bill Richards mentioned this, but when we were going around, somebody would always say to me, when you and Triplett were riding all those days together, did you ever think about where this thing was going to go? I said, we never talked about it. We never said anything about it. What the future might hold for it. But it's interesting to note, though, one of the previous surveys in terms of the USDA with agriculture has indicated that 35% of the cropland acres in the United States are no-tilled. 27 additional percent conservation tilled, which means we'll have something with residue left on the surface of the soil. And in that same census, Ohio was 39.8%. No, we never envisioned that anything at all of this type. We put out, we tried to work with them, and well, enough of all of that. And we put together a little pasture leaflet that some of you have seen, the little 4-H thing with pasture management and pasture seedings. I don't know what, since we retired, what has happened with that, but I can tell you, up until that time, it was the most printed, used publication through the Ohio State University. Not only in Ohio, but our requests from printing it around the country. We have requests from around the world. We held a no-till 4-H symposium in Ohio. We held no-till tillage symposiums in Ohio. We had people from Australia, New Zealand, Europe, Canada, and we went to the 4-H when we had them from Southeast Asia. It was unbelievable, the attention that we had working here, and yes, we were proud to have had the opportunity of working with you. You made it work. It was you that kept driving us. Let it happen. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Don Myers. Bill, where does your story pick up from there? You've got quite a act to follow.
Well, it's an honor being up here with Doc Triplett, Bill, Don Myers, and also Dave. My career started actually just briefly being out of the Air Force in 1969 early, and I interviewed with 3 companies, Siegel Geigy, or Geigy in those days, Roman Haas, and Chevron Chemical. And the thing that moved me to Chevron was they were working with a system called no-tillage crop production. At that time, my thinking was fuel was 16 to 30 cents a gallon, and I figured if it went up to $1 a gallon, everybody and his brother would be in no-tillage. How wrong I was. And I worked Eastern PA, New Jersey, part of Maryland, Virginia. I've had the pleasure of working with some of the best in the industry and also the universities, between Bill McClellan, Lynn Hoffman, Harry Young in Kentucky. I had a chance to see them all. When I got the opportunity to move out to Ohio, they told me it was a land of opportunity, and besides, Doc Triplett is the father of no-tillage in Ohio. So I decided to find an apartment right there in Worcester so I can be with that father of no-tillage. And we would have Saturday, he'd invite all his graduate students, and we worked together. And what motivated me was I got a lot of no-till started in New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware. When I got to Ohio, I found out very quickly that the only people that were working on no-tillage and accomplished was the Don Mars, the Van Doras, the Triplets, and also the Sam Bowers. And so we had to put together a program, and through Chevron Chemical and Alice Chalmers, right in this county, we had 4 seminars. At each seminar was full houses, 100 to 125. And it took a lot of education. And I can't tell you that education is very important. What I have become over the last 45, 46 years working in this thing is how can you motivate people to go no-till? And I came to the conclusion that we need to somehow find a way to reward the people that no-till for the long haul. We don't want to put anybody in jail, Bill, but we want to come up with programs to where maybe we can tie this conservation program to the insurance, the program payments. You're not penalizing anybody, you just tell them if you save our soil, you save the environment, you're going to get rewarded for the long haul. And I've had calls from the soil and water people saying we spent millions and millions of dollars and we showed very little for it. And the reason for it is that we don't have regulations that work. We have red lights, we have caution lights, we have traffic officers. Why? If we knew everybody followed the laws, we wouldn't have all these things. So what I like to do myself for the time I've got here is to just ways beside education and demonstrations and that type of meetings, educational meetings, is to provide farmers that go no-tillage with a source that they can go to when they have a problem. I've got a slug problem, I need to go to somebody that will help me solve it. I've got a mouse problem, I need to go to somebody. And the only way you can do this is to have qualified people. Over the last 40 years, I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of retailers, a lot of farmers, and Chevron Chemical gave us the funding to hire about 14 what we call consultants. I see Gary back there, raise your hand, Gary. He was one of them, and Dave's another one. There's still a few, out there. But these were people that Chevron hired. We didn't pay them much, but we educated them to the fact of this is what you need to do to help your neighbor. So if a neighbor had a problem, they would go to these, and then the Chevron rep would take over from them. Like I say, I've had the pleasure of working with the best of the best in the Midwest and also out east. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to save our soil. And I can tell you a lot of stories about no-till, no-corn. I've heard that for many years. In fact, the Stauffer rep would say, no-till, no-corn, until his company bought our company, and now he had Paraguay. And so at one of the meetings I said, you know what, let me remind you that no-till, no Stauffer. See, that's what you meant to say. Now you got to sell paraquat, and the only way you can sell it is in no-tillage. So it does take hand-holding. It takes cooperation between successful farmers, and the only way that I can see where no-tillage can succeed is to show successes. Yeah, we've got problems, and most of the tools, the information, the remedies have all been designed, Dr. Triplett, for conventional tillage. I've never seen an agronomy meeting where they have an insect problem, they never show no-tillage, it's always a conventional. When they have a weed problem, it's always a conventional. That tells me that with the amount of time that research is spent on no-tillage, really, we're fortunate to have as much no-tillage as we have. The equipment companies, I can tell you, was challenged, and I can verify this because we met with the 5 major equipment companies at the Fawcett Center. Don Mars was there, Dr. Triplett was there, Sam Moe was there, Van Dorn was there, and we got into it with one of the chemical companies. I won't name them, but I know it was in Alice Chalmers. And this guy got up and he says, have you guys got any research on this? And before somebody could answer him, he said, let me educate you. We have enough tillage equipment in Ohio where we can turn Ohio upside down, and we don't have to begin in the fall. And by then, Don Mars got up and walked out. I was 27 years old, and this guy was 20 years older than I have. So I stood up with him and I said, do you have any no-tillage equipment to sell? And he said, no. And I said, well, you can sit down. Listen to the rest. And then I went on hunted Don Mars, and he was out there pacing the floor. And I said, Don, what's the matter? He says, if I stayed in there any longer, I would have had a fist fight with that guy. He's a lot bigger than I am. So with that, what we do this is open up for questions and answers after Dave gets through, okay?
If we have a couple moments there, definitely. David, I'd like you to continue those comments, and you get to talk to people every day about not only no-till, but cover crops. What is continuing their thing? What is the key for the future?
Well, first I want to thank, I'm the youngest one here today, which is great, on this panel. And if it hadn't been for this facility and these men sitting here helping me get started, it would happen. But I'm really excited about the future because we're seeing how no-till with cover crops, and I think that's the answer. We have to have both. No-till was the start of the situation, but to complete the circle, we put cover crops in there to control the erosion, to bring some nutrients to the surface, to bring beneficial insects in, and we can learn as producers to reduce, as we do these things, to reduce our bought inputs. I think we can see lots of things happening. And I'm so ecstatic about how we are seeing this movement move forward today, because, as they've all talked about how we started, it was really, I remember the first time I ever put on a meeting, every question was how much horsepower does it take to pull a 2-row corn plant, And I'd worked with Bill, and we had 4 horses pulling a 2-row corn planter, so that was my answer. There was the first slide I ever showed. It takes 4 horsepower to pull a 2-row corn planter, And from there, it just mushroomed up. And I can't thank Chevron Chemical Company for starting and doing those things. Other companies have come along lines, but I think today we need still to have that mentorship from some leader in the community, someone who's willing to share his information and help the producers in their areas to learn more and be adapted rather than fight amongst themselves on who's going to farm the most land and do those kind of things. And I think as we look at no-till and cover crops, we increase the quality of our product we're producing. We're now learning that we're producing more nutrient-dense commodities by having cover crop and no-till versus conventional tillage. I think we'll feed the world by nutrient dense. We will not feed the yield by yield. As we increase the yields, we see the nutrient density going down in corn, beans, and wheat. Unless it's in a cover crop situation. So I think that'll be the real key. And I really look forward to seeing what ADM and Cargill and those commodity groups will put together in the near future, because they're really looking at nutrient-dense things now in the food industry. So I'm really excited about what's going on, and that was, I just want to thank all the fellows here that came to my farm in, I think it was 1972. All of them were here. It was such a pleasure to have all these men tell me that they don't know whether we can plant into cover crop that's 8 foot tall, at that point in time. But we can do it today with the equipment we have, And today, all the equipment's built to do no-till and cover crop work with, which is a real plus, So thank you.
And it's taken years of work. Let's give them all a big round of applause. Do we have anybody who's burning to ask a question out there? I think we've got just a couple minutes.
Grover, what's your opinion of strip tillage?
Your opinion of strip tillage?
Strip tillage is better than complete tillage.